Hello, viewers. Welcome to Novel Ideas. My name is James Floyd Kelly. Thanks for joining us today. We are doing Season 2, Episode 5, Eric.
Wow. Yay.
This is my friend Eric Wex. If this is the first time you're joining us, Eric and I like to sit around for 15 to 20 minutes every week and talk about writing and what have you. And today we've actually got an interesting topic that both of us sort of agree on. And but before we get to that, Eric, let's go ahead and do this. We'll issue the spoiler warning.
Yes.
We are going to be talking about, hold your copy up, Eric. We're going to be talking about this book, right? The Martian.
Awesome book.
Totally awesome book. So if you haven't read it, we're going to tell you, well, it's really kind of bad. We're going to tell you why you should read it, but unfortunately there's going to be spoilers, so you may just want to take our word for it.
Well, I think we want to talk about why it's a great book. So if you're one of those people who really needs to read it first, read it first. It'll take you 2 days. I don't know anyone who can put this book down. That's one of the greatest things about it. So it'll take you a couple of days, get through it, and then come back and listen to us.
Yeah, and I did. I read it in 2 days.
Yep.
It was.
Yeah, I didn't stop once you got started. So.
And today's medical day. You had a doctor's appointment. I had a crown put on a cracked tooth. So we're in real good shape today, aren't we?
Hey, it's just a better glide path to the grave at this point. All right, that's all we're doing.
I have to laugh because if I don't laugh, I'd be crying right now. It hurts, you know. Just the numbness is wearing off. So, Eric, the reason we're going to talk about The Martian today is because
I think this is the best science fiction book I've read in probably a decade.
And on my side, it's got a really good backstory about how this book came to be.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about that. So
let's start with the backstory. So tell the story of how this book got published.
Well, you know, let me tell you, this book came out in hardback just about a year ago, and normally when you get a review copy from a publisher, you get this lengthy piece of paper that usually has information about the book and why you should read it and review it, which I review books for Geek Dad, so does Eric. So, you know, we get these kind of papers, and a lot of times in these documents we'll have a mini interview with the writer that we can include snippets in our reviews. So what caught me about this book was that the author, Andy Weir, and I hope I'm getting his last name correct because I don't know. What caught me about Andy's story was this is a pretty big book, but he wrote it in snippets and he released it online, a little at a time. And what happened was word of mouth, and there's a reason why the word of mouth was there. We'll talk about that. But the book trickled out until it was finished, and then somebody somewhere at, I guess, Crown
Publishing. So Crown is, if you're an indie author, we all need to cheer for Crown because Crown has done this twice that I know of. It may have done it more. So Crown took Andy's self-published book and then wrote when it had success as an ebook on Amazon, they recognized its potential to be a national bestseller. They picked it up and made it a national bestseller. So they have also done this with Jason Gurley, my friend Jason Gurley here in Portland. It is the same people, same publisher, different editor, but same publisher who has done this again and picked up Eleanor for a substantial sum. And they are going to take his self-published book and make it into a traditionally published book. In fact, Jason was just celebrating with us at the writers group on Saturday. He sent in the final edits, so it's now to proofing and all that stuff. So
very cool.
Eleanor is coming.
So Crown, if anybody at Crown is watching this, thank you for what you do for indie writers.
No joke.
And this is, and you know, it should be said that not only was it picked up, but it's also been the rights have been bought for a movie.
Yes.
I don't know how far along, you know, I don't know how far along that process has moved, but just the fact that, and I agree, it could be a totally awesome movie. I would go pay to see it. So you don't know how it ends and all that good stuff.
Look, and I think this is a great segue into why does that happen? Why is it that Jason's book and Andy Weir's book, were picked up, and others aren't? And I want to step back and I want to challenge indie writers that these books are better. Like, I think there are plenty of good indie books out there that are what I call solid fiction, right? But they're not fantastic. They're the kind of book that you can read on a plane and you can go home and you're happy that you didn't have to think about being on a plane for 4 or 5 hours, right? And you're not discontent. I think that's kind of where most of us are. But you're not getting the hand sales that are happening here, right? And so I really I have taken those two experiences, Jason's and Andy Weir's, kind of to heart, and I really am working this year on improving my stuff so that we can actually get to the place where I'm writing something that stands out so well that I can attract interest from a traditional publisher. So I think that's something that a lot of indie authors don't think they can do, and I don't know that they understand that their books are just part of the crowd. We want to make our books stand above it. Yeah. I think we have to.
Eric, in the past episodes, we've talked about the importance of identifying what your book is about and nailing it in like 1 or 2 sentences. Let me tell you why I read. Now I'm not making this up. I probably get about 12 to 2 dozen books sent to me a month, unsolicited. I don't ask for them. They just get sent to me. This one was sent to me. And the reason I picked it out of all the others and read it was because of these 2 sentences. 6 days ago, astronaut Mark Watney became one of the first people to walk on the surface of Mars. Now, he may be the first person to die there. I mean, I read that and I was like, okay, let's check this out. Now, I did read the rest of the press release, but at that point, he had me.
Okay, so I bet you and I can create the same tagline. That one of the things that I love about this book, and I think that is something that we need to that I can strive for more in my fiction. This book has a really easy tagline that is incredibly compelling, and I bet you and I can figure it out. If you were to sum up this book and say it's like,
well,
what is it?
It's right here. It says Apollo 13 meets Castaway.
There you are. There you are. And you like within 3 sentences of reading this book, you are right in the middle of that really great Apollo 13 film, and if you know history, right, you're right in the middle of that historic Apollo 13 event, but the stakes are so much higher, yep. Right? And so we'll do minor spoilers at this point, but if you're still listening and you care about spoilers, this is about where you're going to need to turn it off. But the minor spoiler is that I sell this to people by just saying, this guy gets stranded on Mars and he has to figure out how to survive 4 years until the next landing. Yep. Right? And that's the spoiler. You know, that's not even really a spoiler, right? That's something you know within the first couple of paragraphs. That is an awesome book premise. And so the first thing I think that makes this book stand out from the other indie books that made what happened to it is that it's not low-hanging fruit. Which is something that, again, if you go back to Writing Excuses with Brandon Sanderson, I refer to this podcast all the time. If you're listening to me and you're not listening to them, you're listening to the wrong podcast. Seriously, you are. They're way better than I am. You should be listening to them first. But writing, on Writing Excuses, they talked a lot in January about not seeking the low-hanging fruit. So, that you take your idea of space pirates and you move it further down the road. It's space pirates, but they're really, really tiny.
Yeah.
It's space pirates, but they're actually electrical energy, so it's space piracy through being a hacker. They're
space pirates and they only steal ice.
Yeah, right. Like, you've got to move beyond the idea of space pirates and not just write another space pirate book. And Andy Weir has done that, right? He takes Apollo 13 and goes Apollo 13 on Mars and takes the stakes and moves the goalpost quite a bit further down the road. And here's where one of the lines that you will hear if you're a new writer is, "Oh, don't write hard science fiction. It won't work. No one reads it." Okay, this book by Andy Weir is getting sold and sold and sold and sold, and it is straight up hard science fiction. So my answer to anyone is, don't do that. It won't work. Is do whatever it is that won't work well, really, really well, and it will sell. It doesn't matter.
Let me tell you, it's a good story. But there's a lot of good stories out there. There's a lot of good indie writers out there. In my mind, what really got this book, the word of mouth, was and again, this is sort of semi-spoilerish, but there's the author incorporates real science.
Yeah, seriously.
Real knowledge about what we know of Mars. You know, the book is filled with technical explanations, but not written overly technical that a normal reader can't understand them.
I have friends who are incredibly plot driven, and they are not going to put up with technical stuff. And one of my good friends, well, James Wood, who's the part of my critique group, said that he had one moment in the first chapter where he felt a little bored with the technical stuff. Now, there was technical stuff throughout. I mean, toward the end, we're talking about tires and the different density of sand, right? And why that matters, you know. Yeah. But you're never bored with that because he gives you just enough, and then he makes something happen with that technology. So the technology is not just on parade; it's totally integrated.
Right.
To the actual plot events.
Now, for an action book, I'll also tell you the one thing that kept me moving in this book and kept me reading it so quickly was this is a cliffhanger style book. Almost every other chapter or every third chapter, this dude is in serious trouble. He's run out of water. He figures it out. He's run out of food. He figures out a solution. He can't communicate with Earth. He figures out a solution. So, I mean, to me, I just couldn't stop reading because, I mean, as soon as I was like, I need a break, I'd read a chapter and I'd find out that, you know, he's out of water. And I'm thinking, all right, just one more chapter. I'll read one more.
Right.
It was a very good pacing. The author deserves credit for the pacing of this book.
Where did you get the most nervous?
Let me remember.
Yeah, pacing is right. Let me not pass over that, and then I'll ask you that question again. Pacing is absolutely right. Like, he doesn't let up. The only problem he has because of that is that the pacing has been so dramatic and the stakes have been so high all the way through the book that you know he's going to live. Yeah. Right? You just do know from the very beginning that this guy's not going to die. So let's talk about how I think we could, we could critique that just a little bit. I think there's a couple of things he could have done to make it work the stakes a little bit higher. But let's leave that alone. It's a great book. But I want to ask when you were the most nervous, because I think the audience should be the most nervous at the major climax, right, at the very end of the book. And that I wasn't nervous at that point. I wasn't nervous at all.
I never. There might have been one or two instances in the book where I wondered, I wonder if he's going to make me read all the way to the end and we're going to find out that Mark becomes the first true Martian because he lives and dies there. But as I got towards the middle of the book, it became pretty apparent that because the tension was ratcheted so high, there was no way he could let this character die off in the end. He would have a full-on, readers would be just screaming in the streets. So, yeah, I reached a point easily in the middle of the book where you sort of realize this guy's going to make it. He's smart enough to make it.
Which goes right back to the pacing thing, and what I call the beats of the story. In fact, I was talking about this with Lily yesterday. They had a day off from school, and we were working on Gossamer. So there's more Gossamer coming, Gossamer fans. We were talking about after you have something good happen to a character, you need to have something bad happen. Yeah. Well, in this book, universally, the stuff that happens is bad. It's just bad. One bad thing after another, which is what keeps you reading and makes the book so enjoyable. But it also really foreshadows the ending, right? You know that you're not going to see this guy die. Because also I think it's foreshadowed because nobody else has died. So my argument was if you wanted to up the nervousness of the fans, you needed to probably kill an astronaut right at the very beginning of the book. Right. So 2 people are left on Mars. One is already dead. This other guy soon will be. I also think that would have really left some beautiful options for how do I survive. Well, I can eat this person.
Yeah, not for 400 days.
Not that doesn't get mentioned beautifully in another context that is one of the funnier moments in all of the book. Don't tell Mom. That was one of my favorite lines. That was just a great, great line.
It's funny, you and I think a lot alike, because you thought, hey, if I had written this, I probably would have included one dead astronaut on the surface at the beginning of the story. See, I would have had two astronauts survive or not get, miss the boat, and then maybe halfway along, one dies, and then, or they both make it to the end alive. And here's a big spoiler: there's enough room in the escape vehicle for one.
Right.
Who stays behind?
Right. Who stays behind? Have you ever
But
have you ever seen the movie Caprica 1?
Yes.
Right, like where the one guy sacrifices himself because there's only enough oxygen for two, right? And that's
yeah. And there was a movie years ago called Red Planet with
yeah.
Like I was like, and it was the same premise. They were making a beeline for a rescue vehicle, but they knew that there was only room in it for one or two people, and they were like 4 survivors. So it's been done. Now I will say this: if the author
that had the goofy aliens on the Mars surface, which just made me want to shoot myself.
It wasn't aliens. Remember, it was chlorophyll.
Microbes.
But let me tell you something, Mr. Weir, Andy Weir. If you had put two survivors in your book, it still would have been predictable, because we would have known.
Yes.
The readers would have said, Two,
Watney lives.
Two, I can't believe. Somebody would have died.
So there's another thing. There's another reason that this person is going to live. And this is something that is actually foreshadowed in Harry Potter as well. You know that Harry's going to live. The point of view character is not killed.
Can't be.
That is really difficult. It can be done.
It's hard.
I'm not saying you can't pull it off, but it is hard work. So particularly when you have a first-person point of view, and it's the point of view, and that character is really not likely to perish.
Now there are 2 point of views in this book, because this story does flash back to Earth, and there's a group back on Earth that's working to try to communicate with him.
Yeah.
And they could technically have taken the point of view and been like, hello, anybody there, and silence. But hey, listen, the book is what it is. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And don't change. I wouldn't change anything.
No, I wouldn't change it all. I don't feel like we needed that in order for this book to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like I really think it's nearly perfect as it is. These things are little things, but they would have come with other complications that maybe Andy Weir thought it through and decided he didn't want it.
Yeah. Ultimately, what this book is for me is, because of our discussion about nonfiction or about fiction and self-publishing, what this book really is it is a solid piece of evidence that indie writers can take their book from just a few pages released each week online to a movie, possible movie, in a hardback publication. I mean, good for him. I'm really happy for the guy.
I think he did a great job. And again, I want to come back to you. When were you most nervous for him? Do you know? Do you remember?
That's a tough question, because it's been about a year since I read the book, and I did.
I'll come back.
But I do remember being nervous when the habitat collapsed.
Yeah, that was a really good one. And he gave you enough science to know what was coming, so you're reading through all the science explanation of what was about to happen. You're going, no, bad.
When that explosion occurred, I do remember going, wow, he's not playing around here. He wants to kill this guy. I was at one point, I do remember thinking, does this author want to just kill this guy? I mean,
we're moving toward the climax, right? And you expect the stakes to get worse at the end of the book.
Right.
And where I got nervous was when back at NASA they go, dust storm, no way to tell him.
Yep.
That's when I got nervous. I was like, oh no, that's bad, because it's a slow death, right? In the dust storm they're talking about, it takes
power. Yep.
Days and weeks, and by the time it arrives, you are too far into it to figure out how to get out. And then Watney's solution to that was just fantastic. That was just brilliant.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and read the book again. I hate it's like like I don't have enough on my plate right now to read, but you know what? I'll fit it in. I read it in 2 days. I can read it in another 2 days, maybe faster, because I know kind of what's going to happen here and there. But yeah, it was a great book. Great book, absolutely. Mr. Weir, if you're watching, write another one, because it was great.
Yep, it was fantastic, and I'm really glad to see indie authors doing that. So again, I mean, if there's a takeaway for the indie authors that listen to us today, it is that this doesn't happen to everybody, right? And that doesn't mean that you can't have a satisfying career as an indie author selling a few hundred books here and there to your friends, which I think is going to become more and more the norm because of how deep the title list is becoming on Amazon. If you want to move above that, and do something different, it's going to take making sure your book actually stands out above the crowd, and that is working on the craft harder and more deeply than the rest of the indie fold.
Yeah.
So that's.
And listen, we're almost out of time, but before we go, I wanted to hit you up. You had mentioned that you're once again writing for Gossamer's Army. So can you give us any ideas on where you are in the story? Or you?
Oh, so we talked a couple of weeks ago about layer cakes, scenes as layer cakes. That there are many things that have to happen in a scene to make the scene work. And one is it has to move the plot forward. Another is it has to give eye candy for the reader. And I think sometimes getting your plot where you want it to go, being faithful to the characters, and getting eye candy for the reader can be very difficult to put together. We came up with the scene yesterday that Kaylee's boyfriend is not someone that we're supposed to like, and we came up with with a scene where they're going to get into a fight, and I'm not going to tell you the results of the fight. I'll let you read it all. But a way to do that uses Kaylee's superpowers. That's nice. Eye candy. That's beautiful eye candy for the reader, and that just takes our plot right where we want it to go. And I'm really excited. So hopefully within the next couple of days, I'm going to sit down and actually draft that scene. But again, slow down, writers. Slow down. Take some time, figure that stuff out. Make sure that you're reaching for stuff higher up on the tree.
Yep. Hey, listen, next week or possibly the week after, I'm hoping next week, I think we're going to have maybe a guest. We won't say any names yet, but I'm hoping by next week I'll have it firmly scheduled so that we may have a special guest next week, someone coming in that we can hit with some questions. We may go a little longer next week too, Eric, if we have to.
Absolutely. We're going to try to do that about once a month. Bring in some other writers.
Yeah, that's right. We viewers, we've kind of, Eric and I have been talking about where we want to go with these videos or these video casts. And one of the things we want to do is we want to start inviting writers to come and talk about their writing and their books and things like that. So probably, like Eric says, about once a month, you should expect us to have some guest on, and we'll try to figure out when best to announce it. And when we do, if you have questions for that person, please, we'll be sure to take those questions and hopefully fit them into the video cast. So
yeah, we'll try to get an announcement up on Geek Dad, and maybe we'll do. I'm not promising anything, but we'll try to put a short 30-second or minute-long teaser up on iTunes too, so that you actually know that it's coming. So.
Well, listen, that's all for this week. Eric, I will. Of course, I'm going to go now. Put this on this top stack and start reading again because you've got me thinking about it now.
There you go.
I am a total rereader. I will read. My wife's so funny. She's like, "How many times have you read that?" I've read certain books.
Yeah.
Way more times than I should.
Yep.
I do. I reread books all the time, and there's a certain shelf I have that has books that it's the reread shelf. I read them over and over and over again. At least once a year. There are certain stories I want to read at least once a year for the rest of my life, and this one was actually on that shelf, so I should be rereading it pretty soon.
There you go.
Listen, we will talk again next week. All right.
We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.